So I was browsing my Steam list looking for a game to play and came upon Conflict Denied Ops. It's a game that I bought a few years ago but had yet to install. So I figured, hey, this is a perfect candidate for a review. Out of curiosity, I looked at a few reviews on the Steam communities and online, and there were a lot of people damning the game for various reasons. Yet after I played it, I can say that, yes, it's not a perfect game, but it's definitely not as bad as everyone seems to have made it look to be. So the game was actually in the Conflict series. I've only ever played Conflict Desert Storm years ago when I was deployed in Uzbekistan. I only remember it being a squad-based third-person shooter, and it was fairly fun when playing it with a roommate. Denied Ops changes the formula around a bit. It switches from a third-person view to a first-person, and instead of a four-man squad, you're in charge of a lone two-agent team. The story begins with your two agents, Graves and Lang, in some sort of ruins to try to get coordinates for a high-ranked general that was staging a coup to overthrow the Venezuelan government. Afterwards, they get tasked with multiple operations around the globe, which then end up wrapping up in a hidden military base in the Andes Mountains. Though there's only 10 total missions and maybe 4 different locales, they're all radically different. This helps keep the game relatively fresh. How about the two operatives you get to control? Well, it's your stereotypical war partnership. Graves is your typical grizzled veteran, not talking much and keeping secrets about his past. He wields a sniper rifle and prefers to take accurate shots to eliminate the enemy quickly and efficiently. Lang, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. He is outspoken, curses a lot, using the phrase motherfuck like it's going out of style, and prefers to make his presence known by using a light machine gun. Both agents' personalities clash, yet at the same time it can be strange because both of them take leadership roles. Here's how the single-player co-op goes. You have access to both agents. You can easily switch between them by pressing tab. By doing so, the camera will go from your current character and zoom to the other. It's a pretty seamless transition, and other for some minor quirks, it works well. Whoever you're playing as acts as the leader of the duo. As such, when switching characters, one might tell the other that he's on point. It's an interesting system that seems to contrast Graves' personality. Graves is supposed to be the veteran, so you'd think that he'd always be the one in control of the situation. Just my 2 cents on the matter. Another oddity is when you switch characters, the one you're switching to always has to ready their weapon. This occurs even if they were actively firing at an enemy soldier. Now, this makes no sense at all. Not to mention, it could cost you a character's life because of that split second that it takes to bring up the weapon. I've learned that it's not a wise idea to switch characters in a firefight, unless it is absolutely necessary. One other thing I noticed is that when switching operatives, the orders change. Typically, I had my teammate following me at all times. But when you switch, regardless of the previous order, the character will go into a hold position order. Because of this, you have to manually order your squad mate to follow you around. It's an annoyance, but it's not a huge game breaker. So I mentioned that Graves and Lang get a sniper rifle and machine gun, respectively. So what else is in their arsenal? Well, that's about it. Sure, each gets access to a pistol, but other than that, those are the only weapons you'll have for the whole game. You're not going to be able to pick up the enemy's AK-47 and use it when you get low on ammo. So yeah, that might be extremely strange, but it's very realistic in a way. But thankfully, you do eventually unlock upgrades for your weapons. Graves' main upgrade is a shotgun that's mounted to the bottom of the rifle barrel. At first it's a pump action, but near the end of the game he upgrades it to be an automatic shotgun. Lang upgrades the firing rate and drum on his MG, and eventually gets a recoil stabilizer. His biggest upgrade is in his RPG that he carries and also the grenade launcher that gets attached to the weapon. You might think that Lang gets better upgrades overall, but since Graves finally gets access to a close quarters weapon, it makes him a bit more of a killer overall. After every mission, you unlock an upgrade. The middle level upgrades honestly suck, because they're just grenades, such as white phosphorus and proximity mines. I never used them once, so I can't show you any of those, other than the unlock animations. So without all these extra weapons that you can deal with, how do you manage to keep your supplies up? Well, there's small ammo boxes available in certain areas of each mission, where you can resupply your characters with any special weapons, which primarily consist of your explosive options like grenades and rockets. But what about your basic ammo for your sniper rifle or MG? Well, interestingly enough, you have infinite ammo. Sure, you have to reload from time to time, but who cares when you don't need to worry about conserving your rounds? Send the shots downrange, take care of your targets, and just reload and be done with it. So other than limited weapons and infinite ammo, the game is your standard wartime FPS game. You take your duo from point A to point B, killing enemies and completing generic objectives, like disarming bombs and receiving intel. The storyline isn't really anything extraordinary, so just focus on the gameplay and you'll be fine. At the end of almost every mission, you'll encounter a boss of some kind. This may consist of an enemy helicopter that Lang needs to shoot down, to a tank that needs to be blown up, to possibly even a large rush of enemy soldiers. Unfortunately, every mission ends similarly, so there's no real differentiating features here. Also, you'll know when you encounter one of these situations, the mission is almost over. But there is one thing that I must say that threw me off a bit. The game's engine just feels a bit stiff. It's not as smooth as many other FPS games I've played. I get it, not every game can be as silky smooth as, say, Call of Duty or Rage, but in this day and age, you'll expect otherwise. Most of the stiffness comes from the aiming, as sometimes when trying to sidestep and rotate your gun around, the weapon may stutter a little bit, as if you're awkwardly trying to adjust your aim. It just feels off, and is difficult to describe otherwise. As you're playing Denied Ops, you'll find that the game saves your progress via checkpoints. It wasn't until later missions where I realized that if you manually saved the game, it would save from where you were standing, not at the prior checkpoint. So why can't I just quick save and be done with it? Checkpoints aren't so bad early in the game, but in later missions you're going to be cursing up a storm because the battles start becoming that much more frenzied. In addition, many of the levels have maze-like corridors, so it's not a complete linear path from point A to point B. You can choose to take the high ground as Graves and Direct Langley take the low. However, these opportunities are rare, and instead there's usually just multiple paths to take, and you might find yourself running in literal circles. To make matters worse, there are 2 timed objectives in the game. Both result in your team needing to defuse a bomb, but at least it gives you a bit more of a rushed approach in which you know you can't just take your time. But of course, if you get lost, you may be out of luck anyway. Even though the game isn't constantly forcing you along, there is constant action afoot. Explosive items are strewn all over the place, just begging you to shoot them to blow up your enemies. In addition, other destructible objects are aplenty, especially some rooms that can be completely destroyed, such as the Last Stand area in the Quarry mission. It forces you to keep aware of your surroundings and evacuate your current cover if it's becoming too damaged. One thing I've noticed though is that sometimes all of these explosions feel forced and overdone, almost like Denied Ops is trying to play the part of an action movie. Guess it could be worse. There are also a few sections of the game where you can drive a vehicle, but the controls are extremely awkward. You use the mouse to move the turret, but if driving around you use the mouse to direct the vehicle. It just feels unnatural to me, and although I know that this isn't the only game to use this control method, it still doesn't feel right. In addition, if you're manning the gun and your other soldier is driving, you still have to control where the vehicle goes. These are the only times where you'll control both men at the same time. Thankfully, the vehicle sections are mostly optional, and you can set out on foot if you really want to, but it's best to keep the tank around because of its cannon, as you will be meeting up with other enemy tanks. So what happens when one of your characters gets critically wounded? Thankfully, it isn't a game ender. Instead, you have 2 options to be revived. You can either order your teammate to heal you by holding the command button, which I remapped to shift, but I think it defaults to the middle mouse button, or you can manually switch to your teammate to revive him yourself. Typically, you want to do the latter option, because that way you can make sure that it's safe, since your buddy won't necessarily clear a room before rushing to your aid. Saying that though, once one of the guys goes down, you have 3 minutes to get to their side. So really, you can take your time, because no matter how much damage your teammate takes while he's down, he won't completely die. However, if both players get taken out, naturally the game is over and you have to restart from either a checkpoint or save. One little quirk with this. When getting resurrected, the ammo and weapon display always changes to a frag grenade. I don't understand why this happens. You'll still have the original weapon you were using equipped, it just won't show the ammo for it. I don't get it. So being that there's teamwork required in the game, how's the AI? The enemy AI is fairly average, although they'll shoot at the operator controlling more than the computer-controlled one. However, later on in the game, the enemy AI will become much more ruthless, shooting a bit more accurately. The snipers especially are more aggressive and can take out your soldiers with about 2 shots or so. However, on the other side of the coin, the friendly AI can be a bit hit or miss. I've read reviews where the computer-controlled agent is a complete dumbass, trying to fire through walls to enemy forces or getting stuck on corners. I've only ever seen this a handful of times, and it was easily correctable. I get it that it shouldn't happen at all, but come on, it's not that bad. Your teammate also does a decent job at laying down suppressive fire, even if they don't truly hit anything. It's the thought that counts. At least the AI is trying to help you out. In fact, one thing I do love is that your partner will announce when he's getting close to you to watch your fire, before he steps either in front or behind you. This is something I'm surprised you don't see more. It's a welcome addition to know that I should be able to hold a shot to make sure I don't pop my teammate in the head. One thing I do find fairly annoying is the voice acting. It's not bad itself, really, but instead the constant lines spoken get on my nerves. Graves isn't too bad since he's the silent one, but Lang's constant expression of motherfuck and sentences containing the word bro get annoying fast. As I mentioned before, it's horribly stereotypical. In addition to the voiceovers, there is a constant music track playing in the background of each level. It's set up to some high volume levels at first, but it's decent music that sets the mood. I'd just recommend lowering the volume of it. Overall, I may have inadvertently made Conflict Denied Ops sound like a god-awful game, but it really isn't, I swear. Most of the issues that plague it are minor and don't really detract from the quality of the game. My biggest complaints are with the stiff engine and excruciatingly hard final stage. The vehicles could probably have been completely skipped as well. But overall, the atmosphere is there, and I enjoyed the varied locales, even if some of them were vaguely labyrinthian. It's a decent game, especially for the current Steam price at $6. Would I pay a full $60 price for it? Hell no! But for 10% of that, damn right I would. Check it out, especially if you have a friend to play with. Final score? 6 out of 10. This is Reaper, on Facebook. As always, facebook.com/ReapersReviews. Happy fragging.